A tennis legend has just issued a serious warning about Alex Eala, and the timing could not be more dangerous. After her shocking defeat in Strasbourg, concerns are growing ahead of French Open. But this was not just another tough loss on clay. According to critics and former players, the match exposed a flaw in Eala's game that has quietly been growing for more than a year. Her unpredictable performance against Oliynykova revealed moments of hesitation, rushed shot selection, and emotional pressure that elite opponents are beginning to target more aggressively. And if those issues are not fixed immediately, Roland Garros could become the stage for the toughest setback of her young career. What happened in Strasbourg was not simply a defeat. It was a warning written across the red clay for the entire tennis world to see. Still, the rise of Alex Eala remains one of the most inspiring stories in modern tennis. A young star from the Philippines who left home to train at the Rafael Nadal Academy, Eala built her career through relentless discipline, fearless ambition, and the support of millions of Filipino fans around the world. She became the first Filipina player to win a junior Grand Slam title at the US Open, and later made history again by reaching a WTA 1000 semi-final. Then came the breakthrough that shocked global tennis. At the 2025 Miami Open, Eala entered the tournament as a wild card ranked outside the world's top 100. Yet she stunned the sport by defeating Iga Swiatek, widely considered one of the greatest clay court players of her generation. Overnight, Alex Eala transformed from promising prospect into international headline. By May 2026, she had climbed to world number 38, proving that her rapid rise was no longer a dream. It was becoming reality. But rankings, as every tennis fan eventually learns, can hide what's really happening underneath. Because for all the brilliance of Alex Eala, and there is plenty of it, there has always been one part of her game that analysts quietly circle back to. One flaw that keeps reappearing no matter how much momentum she builds. Her serve. Not her baseline game. Not her return, which has become one of the sharpest on the WTA Tour. Not even her forehand, which at its peak can rip through elite defenses in a single rally. The issue is simpler and more dangerous. The serve. The one shot in tennis where everything is fully in the player's control, untouched by pressure from the opponent. And somehow, that very foundation has become the most debated part of her rise. Former world number 9 and respected analyst Andrea Petkovic has followed Eala's development closely, and in early 2026 she finally voiced what many around the sport had been thinking, but avoided saying publicly. Her assessment was direct. Eala's serve remains inconsistent. On some weeks it holds up under pressure, but on others the first serve disappears, and the second serve becomes vulnerable to attack. Petkovic even pointed to hard numbers from Eala's 2026 Madrid opener, where she won just 37% of points behind her second serve. At the elite level of women's tennis, especially on clay, that is not a minor detail. It is a pattern opponents can build an entire strategy around. It is an opening that invites pressure on every return game. Still, for most of the spring leading into French Open, this concern remained mostly theoretical, discussed in analysis shows and podcasts, but never truly tested by someone capable of exposing it under real match pressure. That changed when Oliynykova arrived in Strasbourg, a 25-year-old qualifier ranked 66th in the world. Oliynykova fought through 2 rounds of qualifying just to reach the main draw. On paper, her match against Eala, the world number 38 at the time, looked routine. A warm-up, a confidence checkpoint before the real challenge of Roland Garros. Analysts had penciled in a straightforward win for Alex Eala and quickly shifted their attention to the bigger names in the draw. But that prediction overlooked something crucial. Oliynykova is not a conventional opponent. She had already hinted at that months earlier at the 2026 Australian Open. Facing defending champion Madison Keys on Rod Laver Arena, Oliynykova shocked the early stages of the match by racing to a 40-0 lead against a top 10 player in front of a home crowd. Keys ultimately recovered to win, but only after being pushed to a tiebreak and forced into a level of discomfort that left the tennis world asking a simple question. Who exactly is this player? Oliynykova described her own style without hesitation, almost as a statement of identity. She spoke about embracing what others call weird, insisting that her goal is not to fit into the traditional mold of tennis, but to master her unconventional approach and win with it. And weird is the perfect word for it. Her game is built on disruption. High, looping balls that break rhythm. Heavy moon balls that push opponents far behind the baseline. Unpredictable angles that most players never prepare for. Moments of defense that suddenly turn into attack. And attack points that unexpectedly turn defensive. She is not a straightforward opponent. She is a puzzle designed to break timing and patience. To solve that puzzle, a player needs stability above all else. Especially a reliable serve to prevent being dragged into long, chaotic rallies where Oliynykova thrives. But that is exactly where the concern lies. Alex Eala has not yet fully stabilized that part of her game. And so, on May 18, 2026, in the first round of the Strasbourg Open, Oliynykova entered the court with a plan that was simple, calculated, and dangerous. The first set initially went according to script for Eala. She started aggressively, stepping inside the baseline and taking control of rallies early. At one point, she survived a brutal stretch featuring 14 deuces across the final 3 games of the set, grinding through pressure situations and refusing to let momentum slip away easily. The opening set alone featured 14 moments where the match could have swung the other way. But in each of them, Alex Eala held firm. She competed, she absorbed pressure, and she ultimately took the set 6-3 with a sharp forehand passing shot that reminded everyone inside the stadium exactly why she sits inside the world's top 40. But the match did not stay there. Alexandra Oliynykova completely shifted the momentum in the second set with surgical precision. She immediately attacked Eala's second serve, racing to a 4-0 lead and breaking twice in the opening games. What had been a manageable rhythm suddenly turned into constant pressure on every service game, with Oliynykova stepping inside the court and turning short second serves into instant offensive opportunities. Eala responded the way she always does, through fight. She clawed her way back from 0-4 down, saving break points and slowly rebuilding her level under pressure. The crowd rose with every point as she leveled the set at 5-5 in one of the most intense stretches of WTA tennis this season. For a moment, momentum felt like it had fully swung back in her direction. But Oliynykova did not blink. She steadied herself in the closing games, held her nerve, and closed out the second set 7-5. In the third, Eala once again threatened control. She broke serve to lead 3-2 and positioned herself to serve for a decisive momentum shift. But once again, Oliynykova targeted the same pattern. She broke back immediately, then surged through the final stretch by winning 4 straight games to seal the match 6-3. Final score: Oliynykova def. Eala 3-6, 7-5, 6-3. A 2-hour and 52-minute battle that will likely be reviewed before every future Eala match on clay. But the number that truly defines the story is not the scoreline. It is 23. Oliynykova created 23 breakpoint opportunities in a single match against a player ranked 28 places above her, a player widely regarded as having one of the better return games on tour. She converted 7 of those chances, repeatedly exposing Eala's second serve under pressure. Eala saved 15 break points, a sign of resilience and competitive instinct. But the fact that she was forced to face that many in the first place is what stands out. For comparison, Oliynykova faced just 9 break points in the entire match, and Eala converted 6. And in a match where margins were razor-thin, that imbalance told the real story. The serve statistics from that match did not just point to a weakness. They revealed a gap that feels structural. And what makes it even more striking is that it was not even a dominant serving performance from Alexandra Oliynykova. The pressure was largely created by Alex Eala herself, through her elite return game. That is what makes her so dangerous in rallies. She can immediately flip defense into attack. But none of that advantage mattered once she stepped back to the baseline and had to protect her own service games, where every second serve became an opening. Former world number 9 analyst Andrea Petkovic did not soften her words when discussing this issue on the Becca Petkovic podcast, one of the sport's most respected analysis platforms. Her breakdown was balanced, but direct. She praised Eala's return game, her clean ball striking, and her refusal to back down under pressure. She also acknowledged something important. When Eala's serve is functioning properly, when the first serve lands consistently and the placement is precise, she becomes extremely difficult to beat. In Petkovic's words, the ceiling is almost limitless. But that is exactly where the concern begins, because what raises the ceiling also defines the floor. Petkovic's message was essentially this: without a stable serve, that ceiling comes down fast. The difference is not subtle. It is decisive. On clay courts like those at French Open, the serve behaves differently than on faster surfaces. The reduced pace of the court gives returners more time, meaning weaker serves are not just returned, they are attacked. Heavy topspin returns push servers far behind the baseline. Angled replies stretch them wide. And instead of starting points on the front foot, players are immediately forced into defense. That is why the second serve on clay is often described as one of the most important shots in the sport. It is not just about starting the point. It is about surviving IT. IT is also what separates elite contenders from early exits. In Eala's case, data from the 2025 season showed a recurring concern. Her first serve regularly sat below 90 miles per hour. At the professional level, especially in pressure moments, that kind of pace can become predictable. And predictability is exactly what elite returners look to exploit. By 2026, there had been real progress, visible progress to anyone watching closely. Alex Eala had clearly worked on her serve, added more stability, and shown flashes of improvement under pressure. But the Strasbourg match against Oliynykova suggested something uncomfortable. The improvement still wasn't enough. Not on clay, and not against an opponent specifically built to neutralize pace and extend rallies until weaknesses appear. And this is where a broader pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Heading into French Open 2026, Eala's clay record told its own story. A 4-9 run across 5 spring tournaments. That includes a first-round exit at Roland Garros 2025 against Oliynykova Arango, where her serve again became the central issue, especially against a returner who aggressively targeted slow second deliveries. Even in tournaments where there were flashes of promise, the same pattern kept returning. When matches stretched over multiple rounds on clay, the serve repeatedly became the pressure point, the part of her game that opponents could lean on until it cracked. And now, with Roland Garros only days away, Oliynikova's performance in Strasbourg has effectively handed the rest of the draw a blueprint. You do not need overwhelming power to trouble Eala on clay. You need patience. You need height and heaviness on the ball. You need to extend rallies, force repeated service games, and wait for the second serve to become an opening. Once that happens, the pattern is simple: attack, repeat, pressure. The numbers from Strasbourg, 23 breakpoint opportunities, are not just a statistic. They are a warning sign written in real time, one that every potential opponent can study. And here is what makes this moment so significant. The warning was already there. Andrea Petkovic had pointed it out months earlier. Oliynykova didn't invent the problem. She exposed it under pressure, at the exact worst time, just before Roland Garros. The situation heading into Paris is now very clear. The serve is the question, clay is the test, and Roland Garros is the deadline. Whether Eala and her team have found a real solution in the short window between Strasbourg and Paris will define far more than one tournament. It could shape the trajectory of her entire career. And that is what makes the next chapter so compelling. Because at this level, one adjustment can change everything, and one weakness can end everything just as quickly.